Yes, he is. Welcome, Trustee Old Person.
And we now have a quorum, so I'll go ahead, excuse me, and call the meeting to order. So first I'll take roll call. Let me double check on the agenda. So Trustee Decker, are you present?
Yes, I am.
I am present. Trustee
I am, yeah.
Trustee Lorenzen, are you present?
Yes, I just answered a minute ago.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
McDonald, are you present?
Yes, I'm present.
Trustee Newald, are you present?
Yes, I'm here.
Trustee Old Person, are you present?
I'm present.
Trustee, are you present?
I'm here.
Trustee Service, are you present? I haven't seen her come up yet. Trustee Vogel, oh, let's give it a second. Trustee Service, are you present?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel, are you present? And Trustee Wade.
Yes.
Yes? Is that Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee
Sorry, there's a
Oh.
delay on our internet since we both are out.
Yep, we're figuring that out. Thank you. And Trustee Wake, are you present? So we do have a quorum of the board. So I will welcome you all to this special board meeting for Missoula County Public Schools. And if you can stand and pull up the flag icon that Lenora sent us, then Dr. Watson, would you mind leading us in the pledge again so that we're not all speaking over each other?
Sure, I can do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we come to item number 3, which is to review, revise, and approve the agenda. Is there a request from any trustee to change the order of the agenda? I will note, and I confirmed with Superintendent Watson, that public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting, not both at the beginning of the end, but we will have public comments at the end. Seeing no one unmuting to make a request to change the agenda, then we will move forward as it has been distributed. So 4A1 is consideration and action on the district's COVID-19 plan of action for submission to the governor's office. And so I'll go on mute. Dr. Watson, if you want to walk us through what this is.
Yes, I will. So as you look at the first part of your agenda, the language that you'll see there came right out of the governor's directive that was dated March 19th. So if you recall, just going back a little ways, I believe it was about March 15th or 16th that he initially closed schools for 2 weeks. We were at that point in time, we were on spring break. And then on March 19th, he sent out some directions or directives or some more guidance around school closures. So the language that you see in your agenda item on page 1 was some of the language that that came from the governor's directive. And really what he wanted to do is allow schools to apply for a waiver. And the waiver that we'd be applying for is would allow the governor to grant a waiver to the instructional minutes. So you're probably aware, as trustees, we're required to meet for a certain number of minutes each year, and our school funding is tied to those minutes. Of course, you know, there's exceptions to that. If we have a snow day, if we have extra minutes built in the calendar, then we can, you know, we have some flexibility. If we have a snow day, sometimes we have to decide if we have to make that up or not make that up. That's all because of the minutes, the instructional minutes. On the other board meeting we had the other night, we talked about proficiency, which is another way to look at minutes. But the governor also has the ability in his power to waive the requirements of instructional minutes. And so what he's encouraging school districts to do is to develop an educational plan. And if that educational plan is approved by the school board, then he will consider a waiver of the instructional minutes. So the educational plan, he required 4 things in the educational plan. Number 1 was the remote learning or the offsite learning instruction, what that would look like. Number 2 is how we're going to make sure that we still deliver food. Number 3, how we're going to deliver services with students for students with a disability. And number 4, any other services that we would normally deliver if school were in session, how we plan to do that now that school's not in session. So what we've done is we used a template that was developed by the Montana School Boards Association and the School Administrators of Montana. And we filled in some of the boxes for what we're doing in our district, specific to our district. Before we review that, I do want to point out, though, that this is a draft. This is a draft plan. It's intended to be a living document. It will likely change over the next few weeks. And what the governor has encouraged us to do is to bring that back to the board with updates on how things are going and any changes to the plan, and then also submit the updates to the governor's office. So assuming the board gives us preliminary approval for our plan, what the governor's office has required is that we submit the plan with board approval to the governor's office so that he can start working on the waivers if necessary. So with that, I'm going to just talk briefly about the plan that was contained in your agenda item. And fortunately, we had a pretty robust discussion the other evening about our remote learning plan. So, and I already showed you these 4 boxes in here about remote learning. So I don't have to go over those in detail again. However, I will just give you a couple of updates regarding our remote learning plan. So we're transitioning next Monday, we're transitioning into more teacher-led activities versus district activities. So the activities the kids were working on this week were sort of structured by the school district over spring break. But now that our teachers are back and working this week, they've done a lot of collaboration, and they're ready to start rolling out some teacher-led activities this coming week. And pretty exciting stuff they're working on. I think the students will find it very engaging. I've taken a look at most all of it for the different grade levels. Nothing looks too taxing or overwhelming. And we asked teachers to focus on review material this coming week, just so kids still had a chance just to get the hang of remote learning. Obviously, nothing's been graded this week or next week. We're just really focusing on getting kids engaged in the online learning. What we're going to do this next week also is use this week, this coming week, to really figure out which students are not accessing the material, whether they have some sort of barrier towards access or they just haven't logged in to check it out. So our teachers will be connecting with students and families this week and trying to figure out which kids are engaged and which kids are not. So that's the other thing that we've kind of asked our teachers to do this next week. But the boxes that you see filled out here are just some of the things that we've already done and some of the things we will be doing to promote remote learning. So let me just stop there and see if there's any trustee questions about that one before I talk about school meals.
Does anyone have a question? I'm looking in chat to see if anyone, it looks like no one does at this point. Rod? Oh, Trustee Decker, you have a question.
Thanks. I'm curious as to whether, I know that teachers have been working together in PLCs, and I think it's amazing what's already been stood up to try to get this rolling. Just incredibly fast footwork. I'm curious about whether there are plans to connect teachers between schools as well as at their school so that we maintain some kind of idea sharing or consistency across the district. And I apologize if I missed that.
No, that's great. I didn't say anything about that. In fact, we just got off a meeting about a half hour ago with our elementary principals, and that very question came up. Our elementary principals would like to see teachers connected across grade levels. Across buildings. So Elise, I think Elise is on. Maybe she could describe what that might look like.
Hi, I'd be happy to. I think right now it's kind of twofold. We are focusing our attention on supporting the PLCs in the buildings and having them, really work on collaboration, identify those areas that they're moving forward with, and so forth. And then as we get those systems more established, in about 3 weeks, we do have some time already allocated in our professional development calendar for that cross district, our district-wide PLCs that where we typically meet 3 times a year and have people from all of the different schools come and join in on, professional learning together. And so I'm really excited that we kept those days, not knowing kind of what was going to happen next. And so the thought right now is to capitalize on those already in our calendar. And by then, hopefully we're in a place where we've done some work in-house in each of our buildings, and we're able to share some of that across the district in a really meaningful way that doesn't feel taxing or one more thing. I think in the meantime, to help, I think the most important thing that maybe you're referencing is that connection across buildings and that support for all of our teachers. And so out of Teaching and Learning, we're trying to really connect with all of the different entities and be the conduit to make sure that the ideas are being shared across the buildings. So we have a weekly newsletter that goes out to all of the buildings where we're gathering best strategies and creative kind of problem-solving tactics and sharing that out in the blast so that people are less reading and hearing what each other are doing. And then as we have the face-to-face PLCs that happen in the buildings, the instructional coaches are able to share, oh, over at this building, I've heard they're doing this. And there's just been some really great collaboration. So that's kind of the long kind of couple weeks coming up with how we're going to make sure that happens.
Okay, I'm going to move on, but we can always come back. Sorry.
Dr. Trustee Kendall is present at the meeting, and I thought I heard her say yes when I called her name, but she didn't hear me call her name, so I just wanted to clarify that she is here too. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. The other section of our plan is what we're doing for lunch delivery. I think we have a pretty good model, but it is requiring some tweaking. I would like to point out too that we're all probably aware that last night the governor extended or came out with a new order around stay at home. And we had some immediate questions if that meant that we would stop delivering food, and that's not at all the case. In fact, if you read the governor's 10-page directive, it actually calls out delivery of essential services as an exception to the stay at home. So we will obviously continue our food delivery as long as we need to. And I just referenced on here sort of some of the things we had already done. And obviously this is changing every single day, but we're delivering lunch between 11 and 1 at these school sites. And the reason these 4 school sites were chosen, these are our summer feeding sites. So, but those 4 school sites, they get lunch and breakfast for the next day all at the same time in a grab and go type of situation. We also, some of you know about this already, but during the school year, we have what are called Empower Packs, and those are backpacks that go home on the weekends with kids that need food over the weekend. And so that's still happening as well. Those backpacks are being delivered. I think they were delivered on buses today and distributed at the school sites for pickup. So that's still happening. That's in cooperation with the food bank. We are also using our buses to actually deliver lunches to bus stops. Now, it started off pretty slow. I think the first day we had 175, but by the second day we were over 800 meals at the bus stops, which is really encouraging because kids are getting out there. And again, this is all kids under the age of 18. Doesn't matter if they're an MCPS student or not. It's free for anybody. And the bus stops are available on our website so people can see where the closest stop is. Let's see, there was something I was going to add to this. Oh yeah, on that note, and I'll add this in an update box next week when it happens, but we're also doing the rural routes. So there was some concern about target range and the Schmidt in Clinton. We are also pushing the rural routes now as well, and that information's on our website. So that'll start. I know we had a few rural routes that started this week, but we'll have more starting next week so that we get food out to those other kids in the rural areas. And then I already mentioned this, but during this closure period, this program's open to all youth for free. There is no limitation based on income status or previous designation as free and reduced lunch. None of that matters. There's no checking on that. It's free for any youth under the age of 18. So let me stop there and see if you have any questions on the food option or comments.
Sorry, it takes a minute to get to unmute. Trustee Oldperson has a question or a comment?
Hi, yes, I have a comment. I just want to give much appreciation to the MCPS staff and to the bus drivers who have been doing the deliveries, because I know that they're doing a wonderful job, and they're just really great to see them connect with the students when they do come and pick up meals. So I just want to send a big thank you to them.
Thanks. Anyone else? Let me double check on comments. I'm not seeing anyone with a question, Superintendent.
Marcia, can I ask a question to Sharon Service?
Yeah, Trustee Service, go ahead.
The bus drivers are being paid, aren't they?
Yes, they're being paid.
Okay, there was a story in the article about Bozeman, so I just want to make sure that they're being paid.
No, our contract with Beach, I think Pat discussed that at the last meeting. We still have to work out some of the details of that contract, but during the service right now, when the bus drivers are driving these meals, they are being paid.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think Trustee Vogel had a question or comment.
Okay, Trustee Vogel, I didn't catch that. Sorry. Oh, now I see it.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say also with two school-age boys that are home with me, I do appreciate also having meals at our bus stops, and we were able to take advantage of that all week through Potomac and then through the MCPS that came today out on Highway 200. So it's keeping my own boys out of the refrigerator and out of the pantry, and I appreciate that. It's reducing our trips into town to stock up. So thank you. And I do have a question also. I'm just curious about how this is funded because not being able to, all youth are qualifying. So I'm wondering how this is different than the free and reduced funding.
Yeah, that is a great question. I don't know if I understand the details of that, but I know Burley would, maybe. I think Burley's on the phone.
Burley, do you have any
Yeah, I'm here. So there are some exemptions through OPI regarding these meal reimbursements based off our summer feeding program. So it'll operate very, very much like that. Stacy Rossmiller, our food service supervisor, has already submitted the proper paperwork to OPI in order to ensure reimbursement for those meals.
Any other questions from trustees? Let me go to Jeff.
Marcia, this is Pat.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add to what Burley had said that it follows a waiver and it functions, the program does like the summer feeding program, which is unique, but the summer feeding program also supports all kids 18 and under. They can go to those spots that Rob identified to pick up a lunch during the summertime. So it originates out of a waiver through OPI.
And I'll just throw in too that Burley put in the comments, just want to make sure it gets part of the recorded record. Turns out we gave out over 1,700 meals today. So that's great news. And I think Trustee Decker had a comment as well.
Trustee Decker, did you have a question about this?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I guess it is a comment, so I apologize if it's inappropriate. I just wanted to share that, first of all, I think this is just an incredible use of our resources. It's an incredible support to the community, and it's an incredibly creative and nimble response to an immediate problem. And so I'm really in awe of what this is able to accomplish. And I want MCPS administration to just know that this support being made available to the community is also supporting numerous other efforts to make sure that families and kids are getting what they need. As we're talking about possible childcare solutions as people need it, knowing that meals are available to kids in those facilities even is something that is an incredible support and resource and a great way of aligning our efforts to make best use of the available community resources in this crazy time. So I'm just incredibly grateful and know that it's doing a tremendous amount of good.
Thanks. Just to kind of keep things on track, the comments normally come after we have a second in motion because we're talking about whether you support the activities. And so at this point, we're still just asking questions. So I think it's fine. I think it's just that if a member of the public is wanting to hear what your position is, they would be looking after we've got a motion. Does that make sense to all trustees? Okay. So I'll turn it back to, I don't see any more, so I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Watson.
Yeah, sorry about that, Trustee Holland. That's probably my fault. But here we go. The special education delivery was another piece of the governor's requirement. This piece is being worked out. It's not officially finalized, but I put some notes in here on what we're doing right now and how we think this will go. And obviously I'll come back to the board with more updates. But this first week, we asked our special education case managers to reach out to their students and their families and determine any potential barriers if we are going to roll out remote learning activities, what those barriers might be. So that's what they're doing this week. Next week and going forward, we will continue to conduct the IEP meetings and the 504 meetings electronically through electronic means, or even a meeting in person if it were a small meeting. And we're trying to honor the stay at home and meeting in groups less than 10. But for some of our families, the online may be a barrier. So we're willing to meet over the phone or meet in person, but we're obviously still conducting the IEP meetings. And then the other thing just to mention about special ed services, our special ed case managers are working very closely with our classroom teachers to see what sort of activities are being posted. They're participating in those PLC meetings with those classroom teachers. So they're part of that planning process. They can see what's being posted, and then they can adapt those lessons to meet the needs of the students that are on their caseloads. Again, none of this is perfect. An ideal situation, we'd all be together again in the same building working on this. But for the interim, we believe that we're doing the best we can to keep the special education students on track and able to participate with everyone else. So that's that's all I can say right now about special ed, but I obviously will come back to you at a future meeting with more updates around our plan as it gets a little more formal.
Does anyone have any questions for Superintendent Watson? Let me go to chat and just check. I don't see any. So, if you want to move on to, I think it's the fourth strategy.
Yep. And the last one that the governor asked for was any other services that we customarily provide to students when school is open. I asked for a lot of clarification on this one from the governor's office through his aide, and there really wasn't a whole lot of specific guidance on this. They just said anything that you would normally provide if school were open. And so we wrote a couple on here, but obviously there's more than this, but we felt like this might be a good place to start. So medical services, obviously, you know that we have a cadre of school nurses that work for the district. They are still working remotely and doing everything they can as school nurses. They're participating in meetings with families as needed. They're making sure that medications are distributed. If a parent has some medications at school, we had a pickup day for that, and the nurses were a part of that process to make sure that the medication got distributed back to the parents in an appropriate way. Right now, we've got several surveys going to our families. Some of this is coming through our family resource centers or our special education case managers, but we're really, nurses are pushing out surveys related to physical needs. Are there physical needs that are not being met, and what can we do to help from the school standpoint? So that's a little bit about our medical services. A little hard to do remotely, but we're doing the best we can. Title VI is our Indian Education Services. Many of you know that staff very well. They work very hard. They continue to work remotely. They're checking in with families. They normally have quite a few different large events, and unfortunately they've had to postpone some of those events, but they are checking in with families. They also talked about hosting a Facebook Live so families could check in. So again, they're checking in to see what sorts of needs might be out there and how they can help the families and the kids. McKinney-Vento is our homeless population, or services for our homeless population. And Julie Robitaille worked directly with our staff that's paid for our McKinney-Vento grant. They're contacting families as well. They're also doing an assessment, virtual assessment, to figure out what needs there might be from our McKinney-Vento or families in transition, food, internet access, counseling, mental health services, those sorts of things. So right now we're just surveying families to try to figure out what the needs might be. And the last one I wanted to talk about, which actually is something our principals have talked quite a bit about as well in the last couple of days, is continuing mental health services for our families and our students that need it. We have several students that participate in our school-based mental health program called CSCT. And that program is actually run by Western Montana Mental Health. They have transitioned their model into a telemedicine model. And so the therapists and the behavior specialists are reaching out to families and providing those services virtually with their families. The other thing that I didn't write in here, but I'll put in as an update next week, we're including a lot of social emotional learning lessons with our lessons that we're pushing out to parents and students. So I'll provide some examples of that in the update, but basically, social emotional learning is a big piece of our curriculum, and it's what we try to do for all kids so that they can be successful in school. We have lessons and activities around social emotional learning, and we're starting to see some of those in our remote learning activities, so students can access those lessons as well to focus on some social emotional learning. So that's the other services. There will likely be more as we go along that I'm just not remembering right now, but as we continue to roll out additional services to our families, I'll put those in as updates and additions to this document. The document requires obviously board consideration on what we're doing. And if so approved by the board, then Marcia would sign and I would submit this to the governor's office as our COVID educational plan. And that's all I have.
I did notice that there are other items to consider listed that will be going to the governor. Is that a voluntary summary of other things that our district is doing just to keep him informed?
Yeah, none of that was required by the governor's office. He only required the 4 things above. We just submitted some other things that we've been doing just to make sure that the governor understands that we're complying with directives and we are maintaining contact with our constituents in this closure.
Oops, Trustee Kendall has a question. Trustee Kendall?
Yes, thank you. This all looks wonderful to me. One thing that I've been wondering about, that I'm sure we all have been, is if there are specific ways the school district can be helpful to families who are, maybe feeling cabin fever and that kind of thing, having the kids home all day, as Trustee Vogel mentioned, can be kind of stressful for everyone. And I don't know if there are specific things that we can do to offer suggestions or something like that, just generally. And I don't seem to be in the network anymore, since I don't have kids in the system, but maybe there's something going out that way.
Yeah, it's a great question. What you'll see in the activities that we posted this week is it's not just reading or math or writing activities. There's lots of other types of activities that students could engage in, and you'll see that going forward as well. As you're well aware, like in our elementary schools, you've got your classroom teacher, but you also have several specialists like library and health enhancement and music that all participate in the overall program for the kids. All of those specialists, which we call, our health enhancement teacher or music teacher, they're considered specialists. They've also created activities that will be pushed out to families. And a lot of those activities obviously are, getting up or walking outside or those sorts of activities. So we are trying to encourage that as much as possible. We've tried to be fairly comprehensive in our messages to families. And you'll see a lot more of that transition back to the school at this point. But up until now, we've been pushing out lots of information about just, what you can do to stay connected, what you can do to stay active, what you can do. One of the things going out this afternoon for families is some mental health guidance that we received from the public health department. So we're trying to stay connected and pushing out as many resources as we can.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Let me just go to chat and see. It looks like there are no other questions. So at this point, we're at the stage where, let me get back to the language recommended from the administration. Sorry. So the recommendation from the administration is that there is a motion to approve the MCPS COVID-19 education plan for submission to Governor Bullock on today, March 27th, 2020, and would also include in the motion a recommendation that maybe we'll do it as 2 motions. First is the motion to approve the MCPS COVID-19 education plan. Is there such a motion?
I'll move that.
Okay, and Trustee Oldperson seconded it. Now, this is the time for board discussion about the plan as it has been prepared by our administration and staff. Comments? Let me just look. I'm not seeing in chat anyone has indicated they have a comment. We had very good comments earlier concerning how much good work has been done to date since our staff administration found out about this on Sunday. So we have a seconded motion and no board discussion. Is there anyone there with public comment who would like to comment? If you can just indicate in chat or take yourself off mute. Let me just go down. Okay, I don't see any public comment, so I will do a roll call vote. All trustees in favor of the motion to approve the education plan for submission to Governor Bullock today, please indicate how you would vote. Trustee Decker?
Yes.
I would vote yes. Trustee Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Lorenzen?
Yes.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Sturbis?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Okay, and Trustee Wake is not present. So the motion passes unanimously. There is a second recommendation from the administration that there is a motion to improve the implementation of the MCPS COVID-19 plan and to authorize the superintendent to make changes as needed, with the expectation there would be updates to the board regarding any changes and implementations at future board meetings. Is there such a motion?
I'll move that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay.
Third, fourth.
Yes, Trustee Smith moved, and I think Trustee Lorenzen, I'm not sure who else seconded. So we have a seconded motion, and now is the time for board discussion. Is there any board discussion?
Appreciate all the work.
I echo everyone's sentiments about how much work that has been done in the last 2 weeks. And with the expectation that now we're with the new directive from the governor, it will continue to be very important work. So thank you to everyone. Superintendent Watson, if you can pass that along to everyone.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any public comment from any member of the public? I'm not seeing any indications in chat or anyone unmuting their phone. So we have a seconded motion, public comment, and board discussion. I will take roll call again and indicate how you would vote on the motion before us. Trustee Decker?
Yes.
I would vote yes. Trustee Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Wood?
Yes.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Newbold?
I vote yes.
The old person?
I vote yes.
Trustee Smith?
I vote yes.
Trustee Sturbis?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
And as I indicated, Trustee Wake is not present, so the motion passes unanimously. And so I think that covers the two recommendations. Is that accurate, Pat and Dr. Watson?
Yes, it is.
So now we move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is public comment on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone who's on this video conference who would like to make public comment on a non-agenda item? I don't see any request to do so through chat or anyone unmuting their speakers. So I will say that this meeting is adjourned, and thank you all for being here today on short notice.
Thanks everyone.
Everybody. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for all your hard work. Have a good weekend.